Okay, so as we discussed, so the people who haven't used it, you've just been using it in your web browser, so as pure cloud storage, where you upload files by dragging them into the web browser and they go up to your Google Drive. For those of you sort of hardcore users of it or want a little bit more of it, then you can download the desktop app. Now that kind of runs in the background. What that does, it actually creates a proper folder on your My Documents or your profile space on a Mac. Google Drive, it's quite obvious, it's a folder with this little icon on, and it actually mimics the system of files and folders that you have online, and it actually downloads them, which is good, but there's potential issues with that. You just have to be careful. We'll discuss what the issues could be in a bit. The great thing about it is that it's always synced. You have whatever you have in your cloud storage, you've got a copy of it locally on your computer. One particular use I found for this is it's fantastic if you're working on, say, like a Photoshop document or an Illustrator document, and as you're working along with it, it's a file that's saved in your Google Drive folder. Every time you hit save, it uploads it to the cloud server, so that if your computer ever dies, you've always got a really up-to-date copy of it. You don't have to wait till right at the very end and upload it, because you're kind of working live with it. One word of caution: if you were working, say, in After Effects and you were outputting a rendered video to the shared drive, be aware that that's going to be constantly using your bandwidth to upload big, massive video files. So it's great for small little graphic files or text files. If you have to use Word, because you don't use the docs, then it's really, really good for that. And also it means that you've got a local copy of all your files. And they sync. Every few seconds it checks to see if there's any changes, and then it will sync it if there isn't. Now when you start working collaboratively with people, and other people who own documents share them with you, you need to be able to get access to them. And in the Google Drive interface, which we'll have a look at a little bit later, there's actually a folder called Incoming, and that keeps track of all the files that have been shared with you that other people own. So it's really easy to find out exactly where all these collaborative files are that you didn't start. There's just one more sort of notion to understand, and that's My Drive. So every time you log on to the Google Cloud Storage, you see your files and your folders listed, and if you've got the desktop app, it's the same view in your folder view and your operating system. However, there may be a bunch of files or folders that you're working on collaboratively that you actually want a local copy synced to your computer as well, because everything in the incoming folder, that isn't by default synced to your desktop application, or it isn't presented in that view when you first log on to Google Drive. You have to go through the incoming folder. But if there's a folder which you use a lot that's shared, and you want, perhaps it's got a load of Photoshop files in that you're working collaboratively on, and you want access to them on your local computer as well, you can right-click on any folder that's shared with you and add to My Drive. That's a really useful feature, because what that does is it puts, first of all, it puts it in view of your, so when you first log in, the folder will be there, which is great. But secondly, if you've got the desktop application, it'll sync it to your computer as well, so you have got local copies of those files. So really quite powerful ways of working collaboratively and sharing content. So as well as the desktop application, which runs on any Mac or Windows computer that's connected to the internet, you can also get Google Drive apps for most mobile platforms. They're slightly different to the way the desktop app works, in that it doesn't sync all your files to the device, because as you can imagine, if you're roaming around on your 3G data and you've got 15 gigabytes of video files and it's trying to sync them to your computer, that's going to cause some issues. So instead, what it is, when you open it up, for those of you who haven't, it actually just lists the files and folders, and then you can actually select a file or folder to click on and to download to your device, save it or open it in the web browser or open it as a PDF. But you can even actually edit the Google Docs so Google Docs, Google Sheets, Slides and Forms, you can actually edit them on the go on your iPads or your phone. It's a bit of a faff on your phone because it's a bit small, but you can do it. And you can still, and this is all still done in real time, so that if Martyn was working on a proposal form in his office on his MacBook and I was out and about on my phone, I could see what he's typing and I can add stuff to it as well. So it is quite powerful, it is portable. It's just the one thing to sort of take away is to remember that all this stuff uses data and you need obviously access to the internet. If you do lose access to the internet, which does happen sometimes, on Wi-Fi, but quite a lot if you're on the mobile, it will work offline, so you can carry on editing a document, and it will try its best to put those edits up online as soon as you get reconnected. But while you're working offline, it's not in real time, and the sync can kind of get a little bit messy with the file. So if it's just you working on one file, no problem. But if there's a number of you collaborating on a file and you're making edits offline, you can be overwriting what other people are doing. It can get a bit messy. So just keep these things in mind. It's good technology, and it's got some really sort of powerful benefits. But you've just got to use your head a little bit when thinking about what should I edit? Is this going to cost me so much money to download all these files? Am I making real-time corrections? Am I overwriting what somebody else is thinking? That's the sort of downside. There are no ways to fix that. You've just got to try and get used to it and manage it yourself. So, just a quick summary. Google Drive is great for cloud storage. Anyone who's got a Google account has 15 gigabytes of data, cloud storage data, which they can use. Okay, and Google accounts are free. So if you haven't all got one, you're going to create one in a minute anyway for our exercise that we're going to do. So you get 15 gigabytes of data, which is quite a lot. For files like word processing files or your university documentation, even Photoshop files and Illustrator files, you've got quite a bit there. What you do have to remember is that your Gmail account, which is the email address that you create when you create a Google account, also uses that same storage, as does anything you upload to Google+, if any of you use that social network. It all uses your Google Drive allocation to store all those files. So all your attachments and emails and stuff, they go there. But it's great you can move documents around, attachments from email and Google Plus stuff really easily with Google Drive because it's all stored there. If you want more storage, you can pay for it, and it is pretty reasonably priced. The prices change all the time, so it's pointless listing them here, but you can have a look. If you log on to Google Drive, you can see buy more storage. It's probably the most reasonably priced cloud storage data I've seen. I think it's definitely comparable with Dropbox, but because of all the integration tools with a lot of software, we tend to use this more than Dropbox. The Dropbox, actually, I think it was today or yesterday, have announced that you can create Microsoft Office Office documents in Dropbox now, kind of like how Google Docs works. But I don't know, I haven't tried that. We're just going to stick to using one system because we've worked out how to use it. We'll show you some examples in a bit. So yeah, it's good for just general cloud storage. It's great for collaborating real time on documents. That is a really nice feature. It's been around for a while, so it's tried and tested. We use it considerably, and it's made our lives so much easier as a research group when we're working on proposals where each of us has their own little bit of specialism that we have to add, or we take the document, break it up and say you do that bit, you do that bit, you do that bit. It works really quite well. So yeah, it's great for it's great to have the desktop application so you can sync stuff. It's not so great for massive files because, of course, you've got to be able. The whole point of it is that you're storing these files somewhere else, not necessarily on your computer. And if they are on your computer, you've got to get them up there. And if they're sort of 600-700 megabytes a time, it is going on in the background. It will use up all your bandwidth. It's not necessarily fantastic for that. It's also not great if you don't work in an environment where you're connected to the internet pretty much most of the time. As I said, there is offline features for it, but it does cause real problems with syncing if you rely too much on working offline.